Let's see. Welcome, everyone. If you are a new student, I actually recommend that you if you have any questions, you're going to talk to our wonderful grader, Miss Alyssa. And in general, if you're a new student, you're actually starting off a little bit at a pretty significant disadvantage, right? You didn't do any of the summaries, and we do have a quiz today, so as well. And there really is no makeup, okay? So if you have any questions, I want you to talk to Miss Alyssa right there, okay? But again, I want to mention that this class starts it's going to start again in like 7 weeks. Okay, so guys, if your GPA matters, if it's important, I would just take the next class. It starts again pretty soon. Okay, so and you're fresh. So in general, I don't recommend people taking something second week, on the day of the quiz or something. But it's up to you. I caution you against that because you're kind of starting off at a disadvantage, and we want you to do your best. Okay. All right, let's do current events, and Miss Alyssa's going to start us off.
Testing. Okay, it works. There's a viral image going around right now of a young girl. I think it was in one of the Middle Eastern countries. I can't remember at this moment, but she just she got the permission to. She was a child bride, and she got permission to divorce her adult husband. And it's going viral, the image, and it was on the front page of Reddit, and it was on the front page of Twitter. Twitter does have a front page, so I thought that was really interesting. Does anyone else have a current event they want to share? I'll run to you.
Iraq actually legalized child marriages pretty recently, or last week, I believe. So I just think that's kind of interesting to note in 2014 that that's still legislation being passed.
Good. Thank you. Does anyone else have any current events? I know that the Google Glasses are now on sale. I think that's pretty interesting in tech news. They do everything. They're just like an interactive map. Does anyone else have any current events?
Good enough. 3 minutes.
Okay, good enough. Good enough for the professor. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ms. Alyssa. All right, guys, if you don't know, Ms. Alyssa is actually a women's studies and kind of like an expert also in media, multimedia, okay? So one of the reasons why I play the Misadventures of the Awkward Black Girl is because, one, it was voted in YouTube the best series by the Globe, okay? So that's a pretty big deal. But second thing, if you want to talk to Ms. Alyssa after class, there's something called Guerrilla Girls. Has anyone heard about Guerrilla Girls? Okay, Guerrilla Girls started in New York. Women artists noticed that they were not displayed in kind of museums, and so they dress up as gorillas and kind of mention or protest about how they're not exhibited and they're not featured. And the reason why we always have an opening video, it's actually particularly because it shows actually a female artist, right? And in a prime where in many spaces such as New York museums, they're not. Okay, so if you don't know, this is your first day. This is actually a Stanford grad that noticed that as a black woman, she couldn't get into Hollywood, right? So she created her own YouTube series that actually became a hit. They're making it into series, and now she's going to star as Nina Simone in a film. So that's just another kind of a Guerrilla Girl moment. So if you have any questions, talk to the film specialist, okay? Miss Alyssa, her email is on the syllabus. All right, let's play it.
Way to make him fall in love with me. Sometimes he falls in love with my wit.
Bitches be tripping!
It's not stalking if you don't mean any harm. He gets coffee around 8:50, comes out around 8:57, and walks to work. And every day I play out a new way to make him fall in love with me. Sometimes he falls in love with my wit.
Bitches be tripping! You are so funny.
Sometimes he finds me irresistibly sexy.
You are so sexy. What are you doing later on?
And sometimes he understands me, like no one else does.
Awkward.
Oh no!
No, I get you.
But I'm tired of planning. It's time to take action.
No!
Or not. Nina's thirstiness wins again.
Ignore.
Was he standing behind me the whole time?
Hey! Hey! Did you just get my call? You called me? Did you call me? What? This phone is such bad service. Oh, I hate this phone. I'm so mad right now.
But I was standing right behind you. I heard the phone ring.
That's the thing. It'll ring and then it'll just shut down when I try to answer it.
But I heard you say ignore.
I didn't say that. I said senor because that's what I call my phone. Because I hate my phone. Just like I hate Mexicans.
I don't hate Mexicans.
You hate Mexicans? Yes. I hate them. I'm a horrible person. Me too.
I get you.
Things have changed ever since I decided not to quit. Not only are we in a new building, but we're working directly with a medical clinic to manufacture our pills in-house. My boss is an idiot, but I have to give her props for her business skills. Every week she's managed to bring on new employees, some of whom are actually not stupid. But the upside to this merge is that Fred and I are now working directly together.
Wait, taking them pills.
That's what it's about.
Hey Jay, you told a customer the powdered version of the pill will be available on the 6th. It's the 16th.
Oh, it must have been a typo. I apologize. I'm sorry.
But you are aware that it's the 16th and not the 6th like you wrote?
Yeah, I am. It was a typo. My mistake.
Okay, well, just be careful. Because somewhere in the world, that typo probably cost someone a life. Just be aware of that. You young man. Good job.
Had I been aware of the homicidal powers of a typo, I probably would have been more careful. Long hallways are the epitome of discomfort. I've already said hi to this woman. What other interaction could we possibly have?
It's a really nice day. Woo.
Are you following me?
No.
What am I supposed to do with my face? Am I supposed to look at her the whole time? Do I act like the blank walls are interesting enough to stare at? Do I make eye contact? Do I have to smile at her again? Okay, that wasn't so bad.
I took the liberty of printing that article out for you, in case Nina's message didn't get through to you. I'm joking.
Oh.
Niggas love me. I'm on my Kim K.
Hey, when you're done laughing, can you make copies of the call reports and put them on my desk? Okay, thanks.
Does this girl live in the hallway? Why am I so uncomfortable? What's my issue? Is it just me? Can other people tell? Wait, what was that?
Oh my God. You're awkward.
I know.
I get you.
This could be the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
All right, for all the awkward girls, okay? All right, We did current events, our opening video. Do we have any optional student presenter who wants to read their summary? Does anyone want to read their summary? It's optional. Does anyone want to do that? Does anyone want to pick up their summary and also read it? If not, that's okay. Okay, next time. Okay. All right, guys. Who's come to class every class? All right, you guys are awesome. Okay, today you're gonna have a pop quiz today. It's gonna be online. If you have come to class every class, you will probably do the quiz in 90 seconds. Okay, but online you have 12 minutes. Okay, so again, people, it's a true/false multiple choice. It's pretty easy because the first round is pretty easy. But guys, it's a probably 90-second quiz that you have 12 minutes for, okay? Do not take it on your smartphone. Once again, do not take it on your smartphone. It will open at 8:20, okay? You have 24 hours to take a 2-minute quiz, okay? It's 10 questions. It's mostly true, false, and just a couple multiple choices. Who wrote half the quiz, guys? You wrote half the quiz. So I actually directly quoted you and cut and paste from you guys, okay? So again, don't fret over it, but especially you guys who came here every class, I mean, you're going to go through it very quickly, okay? But take as much as you need, okay? But usually, if I gave it in class right now, you'd be done in 60 seconds, okay? So it's true, false. It's just down the line, okay? All right, so what's going to happen is you're going to go in something called iLearn, and you're going to go to your course materials. Write it down. Course materials. In week 2 is when it will open. So if anyone has a smartphone, just tell me when it opens. It should open at 8:20. So it'll open during class. I suggest you do not take it in class, okay? But just take it anytime you want. You can take it within 24 hours. There's a question back there. I saw a hand. Yes. It is 24 hours. You have 24 hours from 8:20 to 8:20 tonight to 8:20 tomorrow. Okay, so I've had questions like, I'm traveling to Brazil, I'm traveling to San Francisco. Anyone on earth, you can take this quiz. Okay, anywhere on earth. Okay, you can take it. Okay, so just take it. Okay, it's especially the people who come to class every class. Probably it's a 2-minute job. Okay, 2 minutes. Okay, but if you want to take 12 minutes. Feel free, okay? But it's true, false. It's and Miss Alyssa wrote a lot of questions, and so did you. All right, guys. All right. So, any questions on the online pop quiz? Any other questions? It is 10 questions, true, false. Okay. Just a few multiple choice, but mostly true, false. Okay. Any other questions? So, how fast can it take 10 questions? If you get like 10 seconds each, it's true, false. Usually, I mean, it's less than a minute, okay? But you have 12 minutes, okay? You have 24 hours from 8:20. It opens up in class, okay? All right, and that's it. All right, and someone stopped me 30 minutes before class. I want to show a North Korean video about human trafficking in North Korea, okay? All right, opens at 8:20. You have 12 minutes within a 24-hour time frame. Do not use your smartphones. Once again, do not use your smartphones, okay? That's straight from our IT. It doesn't really work. It kicks you off, okay? So you're going to go to iLearn. You're going to go to course materials. You're going to go week 2, and you're going to go quiz 1, okay? So once at 8:20, people who have laptops, you tell me if it opens up, okay, at 8:20, okay? Tell me if that happens, okay? All right, once you start, you must finish. Once you start, you must finish, okay? So you're going to finish. It's 10 questions, okay? All right, great, okay? Just if you're interested more about Gorilla Girls, please talk to Miss Alyssa. She'll probably give you a whole background on Gorilla Girls. All right, The Social Construction of Race by Lopez, Hanny Lopez. All right, guys, he is a huge legal scholar. He does critical race theory. Can someone read the first text? Okay, Alyssa, walk him down.
Check? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Ian F. Penny, a legal scholar. He argues race is used in law even though it's proven to be a fallacy. Race is a fallacy. There are no traits that all African or Anglos all share. There are more genetic variations, difference within races and between races.
All right, please write that down. This is something overlapping. Where's my anthropology majors? Raise your hand. Where's my anthropology? This is straight from Anthro 1, guys. This is straight from Anthro 1, right? It's like the first 2 lectures of Anthro 1. Race is not real, guys. Look to our anthro majors. Raise your hand. Talk to them. Okay, all the anthro majors, talk to them, ask them questions, okay? Race is a social construction, okay? There are no differences, significant difference between us. We're almost identical. And there's more differences between races, okay? Within races, excuse me, than between races, okay? Anthro majors, I'm looking at you guys. Raise your hand, anthro majors. Okay, give me more reasons why race is a social construction. Tell me something about the mitochondrial DNA. Tell me about anything why race is a social construction. Anthro majors, raise your hand. Volunteer.
I'm coming for you guys.
Volunteer.
I see most of you over here. Here, you.
Well, basically, race is based on social status. There's no evidence that actually suggests that everybody, or that races developed on their own. They, based on origins of the human species that started in Africa and moved out.
Excellent. So you guys, if you think that we come in like clean, demarcated boxes, like, and we're all separated from each other, you are mistaken. We're all variations of each other, okay? Do you think your ancestors only mated with people who look like them? No, they interacted and mated with everyone, okay? If we swapped your DNA right now, we are all connected, and we're all, actually, people who you think phenotypically look like you, they're probably genetically not as close to you as other people, okay? So that's pretty interesting, okay? And lots of interesting and facts about that. And that's why I love being an anthro major. It's astounding, okay? All right, can someone read the slide?
Can we divide people by race? I'm gonna ignore the link right there. 1922, Ozawa versus United States. Asserted by naturalization law, he is white. 1923 was the case of United States versus Thine. How's that pronounced? Thin.
Uh-huh.
All right. Asian Indian argued that he is Aryan, so he is white.
All right, again, look to the anthro majors. Number 1, there's a Japanese American, Ozawa. He said that, am I lighter than Anglo people? And he said, yes. Am I fluent in English and born and raised in Hawaii? And he said, yes. And he said, well, doesn't that make me a white person? Okay, so he actually went to the federal government and he sued for that. Another Indian American or Indian person of Indian descent that was raised in America, he said he is Aryan, right? Now he made a biological argument. One made a phenotypic argument, right, Mr. Andrew? He's white, right? Another one, the Indian American, he said, or actually Asians were denied citizenship, so Indian of descent, he said that he's by Aryan descent. Now, Hitler, of course, got it wrong. He said that, the Aryan race are, technotonic. I don't know what he's thinking about. It's like nowhere near there, okay? But he made an argument, if you look at Aryanness, and that's like all the skinheads, right? They all say, I'm Aryan, okay? Aryans came from the Caucasus Mountains, guys, and they went to India and Europe, right? So you can actually make an argument, people in India are Aryan, and actually they are Aryan, okay? So he went to the federal government and argued that he is, quote, white, and they should be both given citizenship. Guys, are Japanese Americans and Indian Americans, are they white? I don't think so. Who said I don't think so? All right, Mr. Andrew, why are they not white?
Well, that's just our classifications. Through our classifications that we've passed down through history, they do not make it through the requirement.
although technically Indians are Aryan, right? So Mr. Andrew said that because of our classifications, right, they are both not considered, they both lost their cases, okay? And they both lost their cases, and what the court said that you are right, Indians are technically Aryan, right? So they're the same stock as Europeans, okay? But what we consider as, quote, Anglo, they don't fulfill, right? So it's like a social construction. So again, what Henny's talking about, it is a social construction. Race is social construction. Even your ethnic group, right, is a social construction. Quick story about China, okay? China did a census of its people. It's like 1.3 billion people, right? And they wanted to find out, the different origins of the Chinese, and they wanted to build this like nationalism, right? And what happened was they really found out, if you're from southern China, you're like closer to Malaysians and Austronesians, right? Northern China, you're closer to Armenians and Koreans. And so they shut down that census pretty quick, right? And so they're very diverse. So even countries, right? So you all have this like ethnic identity, right? But I guarantee you all are very genetically diverse, okay? You just don't know your ancestors, okay? And I'm sure, they're open, okay? All right. There's 4 reasons why race is not scientifically real. Let's have someone read that.
4 reasons. A, mtDNA shows we are all descended from Africa. B, there are more difference within a group than between groups. C, the most genetic diversity is from Africa, which means other populations are younger and migrated out. D, race was socially constructed to justify slavery.
All right, Miss Melody, right? Excellent, okay? So if we swapped your cheeks right now, and we took your mitochondrial DNA, and we can compare it to your mom and your grandmother, right? It comes down for your mom. You would find that actually, if you do that, and people have done that, right? It shows that our descendants is actually from Africa, right? Number 2, right? If we were to test you genetically, within groups, you have more genetic diversity than between groups, okay? Bio majors, you can back me up here, okay? Also, in terms of looking at population density and population change and difference, the longer you're in a place, the more you are diverse. The shorter you're in a place, the more you're similar to your fellow man, right? You look at Asia, you look at Europe, very similar populations genetically. You look at Africa, the most diverse genetic place on the planet, okay? What does that mean? That means that Africa is the hub, right? Africa is where we're from, because you look at it genetically, you can tell, if you test different Africans, they're very genetically different, actually, from each other, right? Which is another indication that they're actually been there longer, okay? So that's a very interesting, it's called the Outer Africa theory. Anthro majors, you know this, you've heard this. This is something that you've gotten again and again, and okay. All right, but the one thing I remember when I was like 18 at UCLA, I was like, oh my God, what is this race thing, right? Race was created, it has a history, it has an origin, right? It has a purpose, right? And the crazy thing is race was created to justify what? I'm going to go into some other country, I'm going to take those people and totally dehumanize them, take all their stuff. How can I do that, guys? I have to justify it somehow. They're what? Race are different from me, right? They're totally different from me, right? I have to justify it. So actually race was created, there's an origin, and it was created to justify slavery. Write it down, okay? That'll be a midterm question, okay? All right, I actually made a little video about this, my other classes, okay, about race, okay, and identity, okay? So we'll take a look. I scour the world and try to fight against. Hello, my name is Professor Banh, and my secret identity is Anthro Woman. I scour the world and try to fight against sexism, racism, and classism using social science and specifically Anthro theory. Just kidding, I just like to travel. If those things are coming out, great. My secret residence is the Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, and my sidekick is named Flint Mead. Today, my talk will be on different identity theory formations with a dab of race anthro theory. Now, if I were to ask you, what are you? How would you answer? So let's think about that. What are you? Now, how you answer says a lot about you. It says who you want to associate with, pray with, exclude, go to war against, marry, vote for, and even where you live, eat and act. some theorists argue that your identity defines everything about you. But before I start my talk, I want to give you an important caveat. That means warning. As an anthropologist, I'd like to say that we're all descended from Africa. This is called the out of Africa theory and taught at all universities, except for University of Michigan, but that's for another talk. Yes, all Homo sapiens are from Africa. See the AAA statement on race on May 17th, 1998, online for more of that. So basically what I'm trying to say in all this fluting theory is, in a nutshell, we are not separate and clean races. People do not come in clean, demarcated boxes. Yes, I'm looking at you. There is no such thing as different biological races. People sure do get discriminated against based on the constructions of race, though. See social construction theories. But again, race is a social construction. It's basically, and this is the big secret that all anthropologists know about, is that race is actually invented to justify a specific act, which is slavery. And there's plenty of books to talk about that. Instead, if you look at the vast genetic evidence, and again, we've already almost completely mapped the genome now, and to quote the AAA statement, most physical variation, about 94%, lies within so-called races. Yeah, so basically our ancestors, quote, got around, if you know what I mean. They did the wild with pretty much everyone, including Neanderthals. And again, for European descended people out there, that's for another talk for you. All I have to say here is that race is a social construction. And again, it was used to justify inequality, specifically taking people from a certain continent, Africa, into the US. Now, Jared Diamond argued in his famous book, Guns, Germs, and Steel, The Fate of Human Societies, 2005, that certain people who conquered continents were viewed as, quote, superior to other people that they conquered. Now let's think about that for a while. If I were to ask you to put in a hierarchical line who's the top race and who's the bottom, what comes to mind? Well, a lot of people equate that kind of hierarchy with superior and inferior. But Jared Diamond disagrees with that in his very famous book. He argues that geography is actually what made hierarchy. He says, in reality, in 11,000 BC, we, Homo sapiens, were all the same hunters and gatherers. Yeah, so what happened? What changed? Well, Diamond argues that Eurasia and parts of Africa and some of the Americas had a better geography where you could actually domesticate and grow plants, which led to agriculture, which gave people pretty much a head start. So basically, these people in Europe and parts of Asia, they pretty much like won the lottery in geography. And they were able to conquer people who did not have the same arable lands or horses that they could domesticate. Again, so it wasn't superiority, it was actually just winning the lottery in geography. Also, these lucky people, winners of the lottery, actually who had domesticated animals, basically became resistant to their diseases. And when they conquered other peoples, their diseases that they brought with them, that they themselves were immune to, were used to kill the vast people they conquered in epidemic proportions. That would probably be another talk about Native Americans. Again, if you add in germs and add in, really more importantly, guns, you can see how these people who had a head start really took advantage of it. And again, Diamond won a Pulitzer Prize for this book. It's it's actually taught in every university in the globe now, translated to every language. So he had a pretty great idea, and he backed it up with a lot of theory. But he was just one dude with his geography theory and how people are affected. There are other theories too. Now, if you go into our own trusty American Heritage Dictionary, which I did, and you look up the definition of identity, it says, and I quote, "The condition of belonging to a certain person or thing, the set of characteristics by which a person or thing is definitely recognizable or known, the awareness that an individual or group has of being distinct, persisting identity. And lastly, the fact or condition of being the same as something else." I actually can go on and on. There's plenty of definitions of identity in the American heritage, but I'll stop. Well, most academics will give presidents the identity linked to race and ethnicity. And again, one of the most famous people is Karen Brocken, anthropologist, in her book called How Jews Became White Folks and What That Says About Race in America. Pretty much it describes how Jewish Americans, or Jews that immigrants who immigrated to the United States, in particular how they became ethnic Anglos and white through a certain means. This really goes against our notions, particularly American notions, of race and ethnicity that are fixed, right? So how did Jews come over here as non-white and then become white? Well, in her book, how Jews Became White Folks, she pretty much nailed it down to Hitler. Hitler tried to kill what? The Jews. He definitely didn't think they were white. And our reaction in the United States was horror to this genocide. And so slowly but surely, we changed our designation of other white groups, not just Jews, but of Italians, of Irish, including Jews, as white. So that's probably going to give a mind meld to a lot of students right now who are listening. What? Irish and Italian were not white? That is right. They were not white when they first came to the United States. Eastern Europeans were also not white, and the process for them to, quote, become white actually was a specific social and political construction. Again, back to our social construction theories. Now again, if you are, let's say, African or black, at different times in America, if you're fixated on this clean box of race, you're called African, you're called black, you're called Negro, you're called Native American if your mom is Native American, you're white if in Brazil if you're rich, so if you're African descent and you're darker than, let's say, Wesley Snipes, and you're wealthy, and if you're Caucasian looking but you're poor, you are considered white in Brazil. And in South Africa, Chinese have successfully petitioned to be named legally black. So again, what is your conception of black globally and also in the United States when it's always been changing? That's right. Chinese are officially deemed black in South Africa. Pretty cool, right? Interesting. So now we've explained how we're all the same and how race was a social construction to basically justify slavery. We've also learned that people became more powerful basically because they won the lottery in geography. And yeah, their guns helped to take over other people. But again, humans, we're an interesting lot. It's all about how we feel. So we've gone through a lot of major big theories, fairly famous theories about identity. But, you know, I want to go over the 4 warring camps. We're going to go over one camp here. It's called the postmodern camp. And Louis Althusser, in his very famous Ideology and Ideological State Apparatuses Towards an Investigation, written in the 1970s, is part of this camp. Now, he has an interesting concept on identity and ideology. And he says that our identity has everything to do with how people perceive us. That affects our identity. So for instance, let's say if I were to say, well, I identify as an umbrella. Well, if everyone sees you as, let's say, a Mexican-American man, well, that's going to affect your identity because they're always going to address you that way. His work draws upon Marx, Gramsci, Freud, Lacan, and pretty much they argue that, quote, agents of repression are inevitable. Ideology hails and interpolates concrete individuals as concrete subjects. Wow. Is that making everyone kind of cringe? We can have our own identity, they argue, but our identity is really affected by how people interpolate us, which means how people see us. Uh-oh. Yes, so you can see how some people are really against this ideology and this camp. Thus, this affects our identity. We are oppressed, he argues, by how people perceive us. For example, you think of race in the United States. That has very much been an agent of how people perceive other people. Another French dude, his name is Bourdieu, Pierre Bourdieu. Now, he came out with a kind of a complementary theory, and his theory is actually based on Aristotle and Marcel Mauss, and he elaborates on the notion of habitus. So by explaining its dependency on theory and history. So basically, habitus is how you behave, how you believe, and how you act, even the minute things of how you move your body. So I would like to ask you to stop. Don't move. Don't move an inch. Don't move a finger. Don't move a leg. Look now down at your legs and your arms. Now, ladies, particularly American ladies, are you crunched together? Are your legs folded over? Have you taken up very little space? Men, don't move. Glance at the ladies. Glance at yourself. Are your legs spread apart? Is all your stuff all over? Well, that's your habitus, as Bourdieu says. We are born with scripts, cultural scripts, of how to act and how to be. My example is actually on gender, but this actually goes to Americans' sense of space culture, which is very different from Latin America, right? Very different from Asia. There's actually the distance of how people should stand from each other. It's actually different according to culture. And Pierre Bourdieu talks about habitus, how we're born with this innate, not born, but we're taught how to be by habitus, and we internalize it. We don't think about it. It's an everyday process. We generally think about it when we leave the country, when we see how we're kind of the odd man out, but that is habitus. Now, there's another camp, the second camp. They're called the transnational folks. They're identity transnational folks. Paul Gilroy argues that we actually should not look upon the mere nation state, but instead look at transnational and beyond national borders as your identity. This is crazy, right? You see how this goes against the postmodern school. He uses black identity as an example, and he says black identity or African pan-diasporic identity is a fluid identity. It's a dialectic conversation with spatial roots and courses. So I want you guys to think of Michael Jackson. Is Michael Jackson African, African American, or African diasporic? So you see how the postmoderns people would argue that he has lots of characteristics of African American identity. But Gilroy, the opposing camp, would say no. He has his effect, his way of being, his identity is pan-ethnicity. It crosses all over the world because African diaspora is all over the world. Again, intriguing identity that's not linked to any border but linked to the globe. Now, identity of race folks, Omni and Wynette, they talk about this thing of racial formation. They're actually at this point world famous, pretty much the big league people on identity, and they talk about how race identity is basically a social construction formed by political economic means and has usually a tool. And again, this is another school that goes, I wouldn't say goes against Paul Gilroy, but has a kind of a political formation. So if you look at, let's say, the census. The census is a very interesting idea. It has changed throughout time. If you look at how people are viewed, Filipinos at one time were viewed as white. If you're one drop black and you're blonde and blue-eyed, you're still viewed as black. Okay, so it's very interesting. Our most recent census in 2000 that let people actually check off two boxes, two races, quote unquote, had really surprising results. Most people thought that maybe the multiracial folks, if you're half Asian, half white, half black, half Mexican, blah blah, you would actually put you would put check off two, but that was not the case. What the surprising results was, it was actually people of Anglo descent, actually Euro-Anglos, who actually put in two racial groups, and they put, you can guess, they actually put Native American and Anglo as a racial group. And that probably, Omni and Wynette would probably argue that had something to do with, if you're of Native American descent, sometimes you can get college applications, and it's something that maybe you view as important to you, and some people want to have, the casino, and you have to prove you're a tribe, and so again, it's social and economically constructed with a huge political component. Well, I'm going to stop right now, and my next talk will be on other theories of identity: spatial identity, language identity, and gender identity. All right. Oh, thank you. Okay. Yeah, it took like a couple hundred hours to do, and actually Jason Beers and Christine from Cal Poly did that as well. And thank you so much if you enjoy it. These things are like $1,200 first minute and $800 every additional minute. So I'm glad you liked it. Okay, it's like 15 minutes. All right, so it's something that I wanted to show my classes that you are all connected. You guys there is no difference between you guys. Anthromated, right? We're all from Africa. Okay, it's all construction, right? So even nationalism, there's many ways to cut identity, right? And there's many warring camps. But just for our class, just know that there is no such thing as race. Okay, we are all connected. Okay, and we're just variations of each other. Okay, all right. So please see the triple A statement on race, and that's pretty cool. Okay, all right. So I'm going to go through this. We already talked about it. Okay, racial formation was also in the video, but for what, let's just get to the meat. What you'll be tested on will be, of course, racism and social construction, but also a key term. Can someone read it? Let's read that key term.
Key term: reification or reify. To make something into an object, especially an object that can be traded and sold.
All right, so a lot of times in the blogs, people say, yeah, race is not real, but hey, I still get stopped by the police, right, because of the color of my skin. So although race is not biologically real, it is definitely genetically not real, it is socially real, okay? So it's reified, okay? Every country does it different. Brazil does it different from China. China does it different from Mexico. Mexico does it different from the U.S. So it is real in that circumstance. So even though some people argue that gender is actually socially constructed as well, still, women still face can have harm effect if you go out in the middle of the night, right? In certain countries, certain places, okay? So please know reification. Although it's not real, it's made real, okay? So let's go back, okay? Let's have someone say, what is the point of race? Race is not what? What is socially what? Constructed. So it's socially constructed, but it's reified as real, okay? In Mexico, you may think all the different groups, but let's say you're Oaxacan in Mexico, right? You're going to be treated differently from someone of Spanish descent, okay? It's not real, but it's reified to be real, okay? So our other grader, our wonderful Sylvia Luna, you talked to her, she's a Oaxacan expert, okay? All right. So now we're going to switch gears into reification, how you see how even though maybe people view Asia as all this monolithic same, it's not the same, right? Bad things happen, and one of the worst things happened was World War II, okay? All right, can someone read the slide?
They Defiled My Body But Not My Spirit by Dai Kim Gibson.
Thank you. All right, can someone read the second slide, and we're going to answer together.
They defiled my body, but not my spirit. Who does this article talk about? Name, comfort, women. In 1995, a reporter hears a story. Silence broken. In the documentary.
All right, let's answer the first one together. What is this article about? First row, you're the closest to me.
Korean comfort women.
Right, everyone write it down. Mr. Manu said Korean comfort women, okay? So it is about World War II and the atrocities that happened, and particularly towards Koreans, comfort women. Can anyone expand on the story?
It's about a reporter in 1995 who goes as a translator, and here's the story of a comfort woman, and then she eventually meets her the next day. And then she tells her more than what was given in the article that we read, like basically her whole life story. But then about her life story, it was she was Korean, right? And then her father was thrown in jail for being a supporter of Korea and not the Japanese army, and the Japanese came to her door and said that if you go to this factory and work, your father will be released from jail. So she did, but then it ended up being her transformed into a comfort woman, and they did an operation to make her sterile. And then when she was finally freed, she came back to her home to find out that her dad had died in jail and her mom had committed suicide before they were able to rape her.
What's your name? Thank you, Ms. Danielle. Excellent. That's a great summary. Okay. Let's go a little, let's add more layers to that. Okay. All right. There's actually several documentaries about comfort women, but because I'm going to show a North Korean documentary, you can watch it at home. Okay. All right. Comfort women. This is what? Can someone read it? Because it's not really comforting, right? Melody, thank you.
This is a euphemism for women who were forced into prostitution from Korea, Japan, China, Philippines, Taiwan, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Hong Kong, Singapore, Burma, Dutch women.
All right, thank you, Ms. Melody. Excellent. Okay, so if you don't know, during World War II, Japan, just how Hitler was trying to conquer all of Europe, their co-ally wanted to conquer all of Asia. Okay, and Japan was one of the countries that felt that they were separate, or their history is very interesting. There's two trains of history in Japan. One train of history was Japan wanted to think that they are separate from Asians, from all Asians, okay? So they were more European. But another historical train in their thought was they are the leader, they're part of Asians, but they are the leaders of Asians, right? And so they use that to justify doing certain things in certain countries. All right, so let's go back to the story. We have the story of a comfort woman. She is a young girl, 15, right? 15, right? And her father is hiding, what is he hiding? Brassware, excellent, okay? And so the Japanese, they took over Korea, and you have to speak what language now? Japanese, all right? So, and your history now is not Korean, so what's your history now? Japanese history, okay? And all your national gods, it's not your Korean gods, it's what kind of gods now? Japanese, okay? So the father didn't agree with this, right? He didn't want to give up his brassware, so he hid it, okay? Unfortunately, the military found him, right? And they imprisoned him, and they beat him, etc., right? And so as a child, she went to the prison, and what did the Japanese say? What? Okay, and then when they said they proposed something to her, what did they propose?
Work in a factory.
All right, raise your hand, guys. If you saw your father completely tortured with no fingernails, right, obviously brutalized, and they said to you, if you work in a factory for 2 years, right, you can get your dad out of jail. Raise your hand if you do that. Okay, so actually, a lot of thousands of women did that, okay? But obviously it wasn't a factory, right? In fact, it was actually going on a boat to Indonesia, right, to become a comfort woman, okay? And during that time, she was mutilated and she was made to not have children anymore, okay? So guys, was it like a nice surgery where they're just like, 2 weeks at the, spa hospital, okay? Or was it just a brutal, just big knife cut through? Okay, big knife cut through, okay? And it was horrible, right? She's 15 years old. She has no experience in life. So she's instantly raped, right? Raped 50 to 70 times a day. And she mentions that it's one of the worst things happened. She tried to kill herself twice, okay? But she said that, her fellow coverman revised her, but she said that she actually, she hated a certain type of person that raped her. Who does she hate that? A certain type of person that raped her the most?
Generals. So she hated the generals because they had long yeah, the span they had, or the time they had with them, was like they could stay overnight and sleep with them, and she says that they would make her do really uncomfortable and just disgusting things. And when she when she would say no, that they would take their sword out, and they had to they had to.
What's her name? Stephanie. Thank you, Miss Stephanie. Okay, so there was a kind of a Japanese, I guess, tradition that any unsheathed sword had to see what? Blood. Okay, so torture upon torture. Okay, guys. So she is an amazing woman, right? Who actually wouldn't kill yourself if you're in this situation? You're 15. Think of yourself 15. Who wouldn't kill yourself? Right, so, but she survived, okay, and she went back home, and this is amazing because after War II, there's a mass killing of comfort women, right? So I don't know how she survived, okay? She had no money when she was in Indonesia to go back to Korea, so, and she obviously didn't speak Indonesian languages, okay? So let's get deeper into this, okay? Let's talk about the number of comfort women, because this is in dispute. This is huge. How many comfort women were there? Raise your hand. Can someone read the slide?
Conservative estimate, there were 200K comfort women. Chinese scholars argued there were over 400K, and Japanese say less.
Some Japanese say that they're volunteers as well. Okay. Or it never happened, okay? All right, guys, so the confounding thing about it never happened is this is very infuriating to all of Asia, okay? This is something that is angry. This is something that is ongoing. It's a wound that's constantly open in Asia, okay? Because just Japan tried to conquer different countries in Asia, and these women were taken from each of these Asian countries. How do you think these countries feel? And how do they think when people say it never happened? Like, what's the reaction? What do you think? Because they do say it never happened, right? So,
they want to take revenge from them on any, like, they just want to take their revenge. They don't want to forgive them because they ruined the lives of so many women, and they cannot get back again in their lives. So they will be pretty mad if they don't say sorry, or they don't even accept their fault. So the other country will definitely hate them.
Excellent, great point. What's your name?
Shugufta Sayed. Shugufta.
Thank you. Excellent. Okay. I'll try that after class. Okay. All right. Thank you. Yes. So if you don't know why there's ongoing tension in Asia, right? It has a lot to do with what happened during World War II. Okay. Think of yourself, men, and I'll do men and women. Okay. Think of your national pride. Okay. When 400,000 of your girls, right, they were girls, right? Some are women, but mostly girls, are taken from your country and used as sex slaves, okay? How is that going to make you feel? Is that going to make you prideful? Is that going to make you happy, okay? It actually is infuriating. Because every time Japan says it never happened, if you don't know, there's always actually there's always like a riot in China. There's an effigy they burn in Vietnam. In Korea, they actually slice off their thumb, okay, to show displeasure, okay? This is all in 2000, okay? So again, my question is this over? Is this open wound over? Is it healed? No, okay, it is ongoing. It is something that is devastating, and it's huge, right? Even now, we have excursions between Japan and China over islands. All right, was she the only one? Can someone read it?
Thousands of comfort women from Korea, Vietnam, China, Philippines. What are they demanding? No Japanese government organization, but impossible.
All right. Do we have any Armenians in our classroom? Any Armenians?
I am one.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm going to ask you a question, Miss Alyssa.
Okay.
All right.
Wait. Is anyone else Armenian in here? Okay. Maybe we should.
Okay, I'll ask you both.
Okay, I'll come over. Sorry, I would run over there, but it's really far. Okay.
All right. Double. Okay.
We'll answer together.
All right. Now, I used to teach at LACC for many years, and predominantly Armenian, okay? And the same answer that Turkey has said about the Armenian genocide, Japan has said about the comfort women. They've said that there's no government organization. Now, guys, if I were stupid, would I go to someone Armenian and say that genocide never happened? So, guys, how do Armenians deal with the fact that Turkey said it never happened because they say that the government was not organized? Can you guys answer that? How do they feel?
What happened with Turkey and Armenia is that Armenia lost a lot of its lands in the meantime. Not only the people, not only the pride, but like the land itself. And not only that, but I think next 2015 is going to be the 100-year mark of denial from Turkey. And not only is Turkey the one to deny it, but like other allies of Turkey, like the United States, for example, fails to comply with what is right in the world, and they're doing that for their like military advantages and benefits. So it obviously makes Armenians worldwide pretty upset.
Can you go back a little bit? What are they? Can you talk a little bit about the genocide?
Yeah, my great grandmother was a survivor of the genocide, and we're actually Turkish Armenian, which is like Armenians that actually fled to Turkey in order to be saved from the genocide. So she was almost a child slave. So I mean, it goes back even like in our family histories, years. You know, you grow up and you're told these stories of, you know, your grandmother, you know, if they didn't kill her, you know, you wouldn't be here today. My grandmother was the only surviving one of like 12 other family members. So it's like, it's, you know, it's ingrained in your history. Like you can't escape it. And even now, there's something called Save Keseb. It's online right now, and it's about Armenians that were living in Iran who were actually recently killed for their Christianity. So I mean, we're still seeing like repercussions of the genocide today. But then, I mean, I want to kind of also, the question is that, you know, the importance of the genocide is placed on us, but there's also, you know, domestic violence issues in Armenia, there's economic issues in Armenia, but yet the genocide is, you know, a really big prevailing factor in that. So it's almost like it's such an important part of history that other things are kind of swept under the table, like at least globally. So
great point. Thank you for educating us. Okay. All right, so this is actually a huge issue still in China, Korea, Vietnam, Singapore, etc. Okay. All right, so what are they demanding? They're demanding an apology by the Japanese government. Write that down. Okay. Again, they've said they're volunteers or it never happened. Okay. In 1993, the prime minister said that there are, quote, crimes against women. Okay. But in 2007, they said that they were maybe volunteers. There's no coercion. Okay. But we have lots of pictures, right, of this genocide. I'm sorry, of this, thinking of Nanking right now, but of comfort women. And the pictures were taken by who? By who? By the Japanese themselves. Now, if you want to truly traumatize yourself tonight, right, you probably could Google image the rape in Nanking or World War II in Japan, and you will see the most heinous pictures. It'll probably psychically stunt you, right? But I suggest you don't do this. But actually, there are thousands of pictures and actually taken by the Japanese themselves of the atrocities that they did. It shows babies being impaled, pregnant women being on top of each other with a sword through them, right? So I suggest you don't do that, okay? But those are actual images that are taken by the Japanese themselves, okay? All right.
There's a question.
Yes, question.
Oh, you don't want it? Okay.
Yes. Oh, okay, thank you. It's close. Okay. All right, let's answer this question. How are when the comfort women finally came back home, right? How are they treated in Asia? Ms. Alyssa, can you read it down the line?
Yes. Number 1, poorly, as virginity is valued in Asian society above all else. Number 2, no children or grandchildren to take care of them as they were sterilized by the Japanese doctors. Number 3, shunned. 4, re-victimized. And 5, suicide.
All right, so it's a huge thing. In Japan, there's a bestseller, War is War, and Things Happen in War, okay? Guys, that was a bestseller in Japan, okay? Now, what if I went to Israel right now, and I said that in Germany, there's a bestseller that, war is war during War II, and the Jews, they died during war, but that's just war, right? That's what happened. How do you think those Israeli Jews would take that? They won't, right? And again, Asia did not take that very well, okay? Immediately, thumbs were cut off, okay? Etc., okay? Denial, although there's thousands of witnesses all over the world from all the different Asian countries, there's lots of movies on it, like Woody Harrelson has a movie on it. That Batman guy has a movie on it, Flower of Water movie, which is, they're kind of traumatizing movies, okay? Again, these cover women are dying off, and they just want justice, okay? So I want you guys to think about that, okay? And again, just really recent, women forced into brothels were a necessary role, okay, that the mayor said. And again, I want to link it back to us, okay? It's not taught in Japanese history, okay? There's lots of comfort women. Filipinos are still asking for justice. China and Japan are still having an island dispute. It has something to do with the islands, but it has more something to do with what happened in World War II, what Melissa was talking about. The past matters, right? And these are atrocities that are ongoing, okay? All right, back to cultural citizenship. A lot of my Cal Poly students, sometimes when I go over this, they always talk about how, although they're like fourth generation, Chinese in America, they don't get along with Japanese Americans. They hate them. Right? I have Korean American students who are like, I can never be friends with someone Japanese, right? So again, there are ongoing struggles that we still have in our classroom as well, okay, that you'll see, okay? All right, take out another sheet of paper, okay, write notes for our film. Write down, when I say the word North Korean, write down one word. One word that just picks North Korea. The question is, how did the Dutch get involved? Indonesia was a colony of Netherlands, and the Dutch were also enslaved. That's what interesting question about race, because those Dutch women did get some sort of reparation back. So.
At this point, it's been about 48 hours. Our team is extremely tired, and we're waiting in Southeast Asia for the refugees. We heard from our partner that the refugees would be crossing the border early that morning.
The idea was that we would pick up the group of 5 refugees once they crossed the river. Our team parted with them right on the border of China, and we would meet back up with them to pick them up and take them to our shelter in Southeast Asia. We had about an 800-mile trek to the shelter from the pickup location.
The intensity with the team at this point was a mixture of exhaustion, excitement, frustration, but also nervousness. We haven't heard from the refugees at this point.
We received a call pretty late at night. We had just checked into a motel, and the call came to a surprise. They weren't supposed to be there that early, but we were told that the refugees were 60 miles away from the drop-off location, and also that the location had changed. I was very nervous because we were 90 miles away, and I was afraid that we wouldn't get there in time to rescue this group and to get them to our shelter. The second hour passed, at this moment, at this time, I thought that we had failed. I thought that the refugees must have gotten picked up somewhere along the way from China to Southeast Asia. It was a really difficult situation to be in.
For over a decade, hundreds of thousands of North Koreans have escaped their country, and they've left behind their homes and their families. It's virtually impossible for them to cross into South Korea because the DMZ, or the Demilitarized Zone, which divides Korea at the 38th parallel, it's the most heavily fortified border in the world. Instead, they flee into neighboring China and are forced into hiding. This is because the Chinese authorities will seek them out and forcibly send them back to North Korea. If they're caught and sent back, they will face detention, imprisonment, torture, and even execution. Much as possible, we have to go black. I think we have to utilize the same systems that we were using before when it comes to the phones that we were using, and also making sure that we're not communicating through some of the more major channels. Obviously, we have to implement also the codes that we were using before, and so I think that access is going to be limited, and we'll have to do it through third party, but that we'll still need to get those check-ins, and we'll set the schedule for when we need to get those things. But in terms of once we get out of China, that's when it gets really tricky.
Months before the mission would take place, we decided that we would establish a team here in HQ that would help guide and then navigate us through the actual journey itself. And so we needed to create a pretty strict protocol that would allow us to stay in touch with HQ back in Los Angeles, and also to provide real-time updates so that if anything were to happen, the team back here would know where we were at and who was with us. And so we met for months about our security protocol to communicate where we would be when we were at different places or drop-off locations in cities in China. And we also created a system through email that would allow us to securely communicate more openly if we needed to.
I served as a liaison to communicate messages between our partners and also our staff who were on the ground traveling with the refugees, especially at times when they weren't able to communicate directly to share vital information. It doesn't matter. You can't traverse illegally across these borders and then plan on flying out of China
we would
back out.
Well, we enter China legally because we already have our visas for that.
It was really important for us to document this trip for a number of reasons. The routes themselves, the experience, and how difficult and dangerous that journey is. And even the ability to follow along and to be alongside these refugees and to hear their stories and to hear their fears. I think that's one of the most powerful things that we could have captured. One that still so many people have not yet heard.
We decided to split up our team, send a couple of people to China early, and I decided to go to Korea to meet with our partner who is working to rescue refugees, and the plan was to meet with him to talk through our itinerary, to talk about the specific details of the mission. He said we can have a plan as we arrive to China, but things change instantaneously.
이걸 기차 시간을 아주 정확히 몸이 있고 더 잘하는 주시로 우리가 같이 미팅하게 될 거야. 그리고 내일은 아침 여기 9시에 떠나가지고 9시 전에 떠나서.
North Korea emerged in 1945 when the US and the Soviet Union divided the Korean Peninsula in half at the end of World War II to disarm the Japanese military. But Koreas, both North and South Korea, have a much deeper and rich history that goes back at least 1,200 years. In 668 AD, the Shilla dynasty unified the Korean Peninsula under one government. And since that time, the Korean Peninsula has been under one government and thought of itself as one country.
The Korean Peninsula is unified by the Shilla dynasty in 668 AD. During 12 centuries of independence, the Korean people develop a strong sense of identity, distinct from China and Japan. In 1910, Japan colonizes Korea, ending their independence. Korean nationalist groups arise, hoping to regain their independence. Some associate with Chinese and Soviet communists. Others hope to gain favor with Western nations like the United States. Kim Il-sung aligns with the Chinese communists and leads small guerrilla forces fighting the Japanese in the wilderness of Manchuria. Syngman Rhee goes to the U.S. 1945, end of World War II. Japan is defeated and their 36-year occupation of Korea ends. A rushed agreement is reached to fill the power vacuum. Soviet forces control the northern half of the peninsula, installing communist Kim Il-sung as the leader, and U.S. forces control the southern half, installing anti-communist Syngman Rhee in the south, creating a de facto divide at the 38th parallel. Mistrust on both sides in the emergent Cold War prevents cooperation on countrywide elections that would keep Korea unified. August 15, 1948. Syngman Rhee declares the formation of the Republic of Korea in Seoul, claiming jurisdiction over all of Korea. 25 days later, Kim Il-sung declares the formation of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea in Pyongyang, also claiming jurisdiction over all of Korea. June 25, 1950. Confident of a quick victory and driven by the desire to control all of Korea, Kim Il-sung, backed by Communist China and the Soviet Union, launches an attack on the South, and the Korean War begins. The U.S. intervenes, helping to push the North back. The war devastates the entire peninsula, tearing families apart and taking the lives of millions. July 27, 1953. An armistice is signed to end major hostilities. However, to this day, the Korean peninsula remains technically at war. The only separation between North and South is a 2.5-mile wide demilitarized zone, the most heavily fortified border in the world. Over the next few decades, both Koreas rebuild. North Korea's development is initially faster than the South. Massive effort is put into propaganda campaigns to create a personality cult around Kim Il-sung, their eternal president. Juche, the heart of North Korean ideology, ingrains the attitude of self-reliance in order to resist foreign invasion and guard against outside intervention. By the 1960s, the North provides medical care, universal education, food, and housing to the people. The South experiences periods of dictatorship, military coups, rapid economic development, and democratization, later emerging as one of the most successful democracies in Asia. Communism collapses in Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union. Major sources of aid and trading partners for North Korea are eliminated. July 8, 1994. Kim Il-sung's death triggers intense national mourning. His son, Kim Jong-il, prepared for power decades in advance, replaces him as leader. Under Kim Jong-il's military-first policy, precious resources are diverted away from the North Korean people, and massive efforts go into developing nuclear weapons. Ensuring the security and survival of the regime continues to be the top priority. North Korea is an extremely complex issue. It's not just a straightforward human rights issue. You have so many other things that are involved, like the security, nuclear, economic, and even humanitarian issues that are all inextricably linked.
It's even difficult to discuss this issue sometimes because it's so politically sensitive, and even refugees find it difficult to talk about because they're scared that if they are public, it may endanger the lives of their relatives back home in North Korea.
The torpedo that sunk the Cheonan and took the lives of 46 South Korean sailors was fired by a North Korean submarine.
The North Korean government today declared it's ready to wipe out the United States.
Right now, there's also new urgency around the world to respond to threats of another Korean war.
For the North Koreans' part, they see nuclear weapons as the ultimate security guarantee. They see it as fundamental to the survival of their regime, and for them, it also gives them an extremely powerful bargaining chip that also enables them to sit down at the negotiating table with some of the most powerful countries in the world. So they really don't want to give that up. But too often the United States and other countries have really prioritized this issue over all other concerns. But with the growing recognition that North Korea will not give up their nuclear weapons, I think that this really underscores the need to take a more strategic approach and to put more emphasis on the suffering of the North Korean people.
The North Korean government systematically violates the human rights of its people. From what we know from defectors who have left North Korea, and from information on the ground, it's extremely impoverished and is the most politically repressive regime that has ever existed in history. North Koreans don't enjoy many of the basic freedoms that we take for granted. Things like freedom of movement, speech, religion, even information.
The North Korea political system, as it's been built up over the last 50 years, really is like a stool with 3 legs. The first leg is complete control of information coming in the country or leaving the country. The second leg of the stool of the regime is surveillance of the citizenry. There are numbers of police forces and then also groups at work and groups in the neighborhood that constantly spy. There are overlapping, interarching surveillance systems that keep track of the citizenry, all of their moves and all of their statements. The third leg is sure and swift and severe punishment for what the regime considers to be infractions.
What the regime worries about is giving up too much control. This is a totalitarian government where they control or attempt to control every aspect of North Korean life.
To enforce that control, any dissenters are put into this network of political prison camps in North Korea. These camps range anywhere from re-education camps to brutal labor camps, and the conditions are horrific. North Korea utilizes a system of collective punishment, which means that if I commit a crime or a perceived crime, not only will I be punished, but up to 3 generations of my family will be punished.
So to achieve this, they've created a ruthlessly efficient system of political control that has zero tolerance to any form of political dissent, which creates this incredible atmosphere of fear of any form of resistance or standing up against the regime.
Within this network of political prison camps, there are estimated to be approximately 6 different camps, with anywhere up to 200,000 inmates currently in the system. These camps still exist today. I mean, they've lasted twice as long as the Soviet gulags and 5 times longer than the Nazi concentration camps.
They deny that the prison camps exist. In December of 2009, the North Koreans gave a speech at the UN Human Rights Council in which they declared that the term political prison does not exist in the DPRK vocabulary. Their response is to turn and accuse the North Koreans who provide the information as liars and traitors to the country, and they denounce human rights criticism by other non-governmental organizations or by other countries as a political attack meant to overthrow the regime.
저는 이제 1982년 이제 11월 19일 날 구에서 수용소에서 태어나가지고 2005년 1월 2일 날 이제 처음으로 이제 캠프를 탈출하게 됐었습니다. 수용소 일단 수용소 안에 들어간다고 하게 되면은 뭐 제가 알기로는 이제 북한에서
Memorize that at 1632. Someone write that down. And guys, guess who's coming to our class? It's guest speaker. These guys, okay? So we're going to have human rights activists your age are going to come to our class, okay? All right, wonderful class, guys. You're awesome. Thanks for your intelligent response. And see you next class. Please check, people who have a laptop, please check, is the quiz now online or now? It should be open. Is it open? Okay. Please wait to get to a computer. Don't take it on a smartphone, okay? All right, thank you so much.
존재하지 않는 사람들로 알고 있거든요. 거기에 들어온 사람들은 일체 신분 쪽이라는